gentlemen, a very warm welcome to the show. Thank you so much for watching SMART24 TV, where we drive your business. It's the 9th of January, and I hope you're having yourselves a fantastic day wherever you're watching us from. This is the #1 channel where we drive business, and not only business, but the key players in business. We do bring you live updates from the different markets, both local and international markets, as well as putting particular emphasis on the regional markets. My name is Anthony Sebale, and I am your host, and you're watching Financial Markets, a show that's proudly brought to you by Altex East Africa, which is your #1 private stock exchange. Now, let me tell you about Altex a little bit. As it's a month, of course, we're getting to break the ground. We're getting to get into a new week, second week of 2023. Altex East Africa, under the ZABU initiative, is telling you you can be able to invest in the treasury bond market. For starters, the treasury bond market is a market where we buy and sell treasury bonds. And these treasury bonds are debts or financial instruments that are issued through the bank of the central bank, or the Bank of Uganda here for this case. And they are issued on behalf of government, because government is a body that needs money and definitely has to be financed by the different sources of income that it has. Looking at, of course, when you look at, for example, collecting taxes and so on. So government also raises revenue through public borrowing. And in order to cut on expenditure servicing loans abroad and the high interest rates with which those loans come, governments resort to local or domestic borrowing. This domestic borrowing, of course, comes as well at an interest for those people that are lending actually to the government. Now, Altex East Africa is doing a very simple thing. It's bringing the markets closer to you. You can now be able to get money off of your mobile money wallet and invest in these treasury bonds with your phone, without need for visiting any office, without need for making any calls. Simply dial *292#. The year is 2023, and we are changing things here. We are trying to shake the tables and probably see a better market, a better investment portfolio for all the investors out there. And Altex is helping you to do just that. All you have to do is get your phone and simply dial *292#. You will be able to buy bonds. You will be able to sell bonds for those of you who are already holding these instruments, and you will be able to get an interest at the best rates in the land. Altex markets open at exactly 15 minutes past the hour of 8 and close at 15 minutes past the hour of 3 p.m. East African Standard Time. And my friend, that's it. They're our sponsor here, and of course they bring you this show live. And today we are looking at the Friday tradings. Yes, the markets were closed Saturday and Sunday, but we were not sleeping. We kept our eyes on the stocks, and we are here to give you the fresh start of the week with a fresh bit of information from the financial markets across the globe, and particularly here in Uganda. Let's get to start off with the Uganda Stock Exchange. Now, over last week, generally, the year started very slow. Kenya, we read the reports, losing over $6 billion in value 2022. Of course, we're still kind of reflecting back on 2022 as we prepare ourselves for the new year, which we are actually already in currently. But a lot is still yet to be done if we are to see a better market in 2023. As per trading on Friday, the Uganda Securities Exchange had only 2 companies participating in the trades on the exchange. The day ended with 4 top gainers and 3 bottom losers, with Centum Investments coming at the top of the gainers. Now, Centum Investments led at a 3.20% gain in price, closing at 255.49 Ugandan shillings. Centum Investments is an investment company based in Nairobi, Kenya, with several investments across East Africa. They invest in financial institutions like banks. They do have other asset classes where they invest in the real estate and so on. But recent performance shows that data, of course, is not so good for Centum Investments here. First of all, their price has fallen from the sky very significantly over the last several months. Looking at the year 2022, beginning at 444 Ugandan shillings, the company lost over 50%, close to 50% of its value, down to 220, closing the year 2022. A very, very disappointing performance from Centum. However, on the other hand, we are used to the fact that the cross listings are not as active, and you look at, for example, companies like KCB and East African breweries, they rarely show up on the stock exchange. They rarely even have a single share bought on the stock exchange. And most of the stock exchange movements we're seeing in price, or be it appreciations or depreciations, that is losses and gains, they are mainly from domestic stocks. Now, these stocks, of course, you may ask, how do they change in price and yet no one is buying their stock? Well, very simple answer there. Because they are cross-listed, their primary stock exchange has a lot of influence on what their price is on the secondary stock exchange, which is now Uganda, in this case, the Uganda Stock Exchange. First of all, at the end of the trading day, the Uganda Securities Exchange has to kind of harmonize the pricings from the primary stock exchange and on the Uganda Stock Exchange. Whether they traded or not on the Uganda Stock Exchange, there must be some harmony. They do the math, and there, of course, comes in the conversion factor, and this brings in the factor of foreign exchange. And that, of course, factors in what currency is doing better. Has the Ugandan shilling performed better than the Kenyan shilling? Has it gone up? Has it gone down? All that comes to the influence of the stock price of a cross-listed stock. But on top of that, the companies are not as active here because people probably don't know about what these companies are. And as a growing financial market here in Uganda, it's very hard to convince a Ugandan to be able to buy into shares into a company they have actually never seen on ground. So, for example, Centum. People will be like, okay, what's Centum? Where is Centum? For some cross listings that have subsidiaries, it's a little bit easier, like Equity Group Holdings, KCB Group Holdings. All these have subsidiaries here in Uganda. It's a little bit different, but not so different as well. People tend to have more appetite for the domestic stocks because they feel like there is going to be more security there, there's going to be more trading, and more liquidity will be offered henceforth on the primary, or rather the domestic stocks. And Centum, of course, is being affected by this and more factors. Starting 2023 in prices above 250, the company gained 255.49, rather gained to 255.49 shares on Friday, and that was a 7.93 shillings gain. Generally, percentage-wise, about 3.2%. But what is the current market capitalization of this company? Well, the company has currently about 170 billion Ugandan shillings worth of market capitalization that's floated on the Uganda Securities Exchange. This makes about 0.811% of the Uganda Securities Exchange equity share here on the Uganda Stock Exchange. And that makes the company the 13th most valuable on the exchange as well. As regards the number of shares that currently are floating on the exchange, we have about 655 million shares currently floated on the Uganda Stock Exchange for Centum Investments, bringing their market capitalization, of course, to the 170 billion. Last week they gained about 3.95%, pretty much the biggest their year to date, which is the biggest on the market so far, and seems like Centum will be returning to its former glory, hopefully this time around. In 4 weeks, they have also gained 3.98%. Now that's a percentage difference of about 0.3% between the year-to-date or weekly and the 4-week performance. However, and this is a big one here, the company last traded on the 11th of August 2022. On this day, they had about 7,800 shares that were traded and recording a record change of 5.12 shillings upwards to 308.81 Ugandan shillings per share. Pretty good day, right? However, before this day, on the 8th of August as well, they had about 1,200 shares, and on the 19th of July, which I think is their biggest volume in the last 1 year, they traded about 100,000 shares, closing at 317.88 Ugandan shillings after a gain of over 30 shillings. Meaning pretty much comparing Centum with other cross listings, it's doing quite well. It's doing quite well. And if I could recommend one single cross listing, Centum would be that company. Because much as they have had their problems, and everyone has had problems, looking at the last 1 year, 2022, all the stocks, there's no single stock, okay, with the exception of, for example, Umeme, that did not lose on year to date. And every stock, actually, you could see the graph just falling significant from January to March, and then downwards, you could see the slope. You're looking at companies like British American Tobacco, straight line, and then a very sharp decline, and then another straight line with zero trading. That's probably devastating. But Centum, given this data, has proved that it can still be relied on as a stock to be invested in. And so you have an option there if you're interested in cross listings, especially on the Uganda Stock Exchange. You definitely have Centum there recommended for you. The company currently is, when you look at the year-to-date performance, they are the top company. Of course, we've just spent 9 days off of 2023. And this is like weekly performance and year-to-date performance, all put therein. At a 3.95% gain, Centum still represents the biggest year-to-date gain so far on the Uganda Stock Exchange. Away from Centum, NMG gained a 0.675% gain on their Friday tradings, and closing the day with 480.18 shillings. They gained a 3.18 shillings on their stock price. The day did not see the company trade any shares, but rather a mere gain in value was witnessed. Currently, they have about 90.5 billion Ugandan shillings worth of market capitalization floated on the Uganda Securities Exchange, and making the company the 14th most valuable on the Uganda Securities Exchange in terms of market capitalization. Now, Nation Media Group, just like many other cross listings last week on the last day of trading, they did also have a very significant gain here, because according to the graphs here, way back, because currently with their 480 shilling stock, they are representing year-to-date losses of about they have a year-to-date loss of about 60 or so shillings on the Uganda Stock Exchange. But generally speaking, this is also one of the stocks that has lost dramatically on the Uganda Stock Exchange. Back in 2018, I'm talking 4 or 5 years ago, the company's stock was high as 4,000. What a loss. From 4,000 in 2020, they had about 2,000 in 2022, down to 500 shillings, and currently in 2023 at 400 shillings. That's the trend there for Nation Media Group. Would I advise people to buy stock into this company on the Uganda Stock Exchange? No, I wouldn't. Absolutely not at all, because no activity. Sky, of course, the prices are falling from the sky. What else would we expect? Dividends? Well, maybe or maybe not. Remember, dividends are not an obligation. So if you are investing for dividends, you're not obliged to them. As a shareholder, you're not obliged. So the company is not going to sometimes be in position to issue a dividend, because probably they did make a profit, or they made a profit but they decided to reinvest that profit for the greater good of the shareholders in the future. So I wouldn't advise people to go for stocks like this one at this moment. And I know and understand we're going through hard financial times. The financial crisis is real out there, so you wouldn't want to put your money in such a risky company here at the Uganda Stock Exchange. However, on the Nairobi Stock Exchange, things are a little bit different. So probably you could seek out this stock on the NSE, or the Nairobi Securities Exchange, for better value on your money. Equity Bank Limited as well gained a 0.37% on their price and closed the day with 1,363.53 Ugandan shillings closing price, a 4.980 Ugandan shillings gain that was registered on the company. Now, Equity Bank Limited is still enjoying the first position in terms of value that's on the Uganda Stock Exchange via market capitalization, with the current 5.05 trillion Ugandan shillings mark on their market capitalization. They represent almost a quarter of the entire Uganda Securities Exchange equity market. Equity Bank Limited, on their last day of trading, they didn't trade anything. They just had a gain of 4.98 Ugandan shillings. Looking at their shares outstanding, they currently have about 3.7 billion shares out there. And this brings their market capitalization to 5.05 trillion on their price of 1,363 Ugandan shillings. Apparently, nothing much going on in Equity Group Holdings. However, on the Nairobi Stock Exchange, and we want to be very clear here, they are currently one of the biggest movers on the market there. And of course, gears are shifting to Equity Group Holdings from Safaricom as the biggest mover. We have understood Safaricom to be at the top of its game on the Nairobi Stock Exchange, but most recently, looks like things are changing. And Equity Group Holdings is taking the Nairobi Stock Exchange by storm. But here on the Uganda Stock Exchange, nothing has been done, and nothing seems to be in sight as well to be done very soon by the company. And that is in terms of participating in the markets or the trading. Well, that is Equity Group Holdings for you. Kenya Airways as well gained 0.03%. up to 115.67 Ugandan shillings. This is one of the oldest, actually the oldest cross-listing, rather the second oldest, because you have East African Breweries coming in first, but Kenya Airways came in the second position in terms of the first cross-listings we had, listing way back in 2002 on the 28th of March. The company is over 20 years old on the stock exchange. Currently, Kenya Airways has stock that is valued at 657 billion Ugandan shillings, currently representing about 3.14%, making Kenya Airways the currently 7th most valuable stock on the Uganda Stock Exchange. Like many other cross listings, no trading was done on Kenya Airways, just a total shares outstanding of about 5.68 billion out there floated on the exchange, and the market capitalization of about 657 billion Ugandan shillings. Bottom losers. At the bottom, we had Jubilee Holdings, unfortunately losing over 3.34% of its value on the market, down to 5,836.15. This is an insurance company with a subsidiary here in Uganda, but the trading did turn out so well for them last week as well. East African Breweries as well lost 0.56%, down to 5,103.80 Ugandan shillings per share. And KCB Group turned out at a 1,153.64 Ugandan shillings share price, down by 0.36%. That was actually shared off the market price of the company there at the Uganda Stock Exchange. Ladies and gentlemen, that summarizes the trades here. Stanbic and MTN were the only participants in the trading, and the benchmark index, the all-share index, paired or lost about 1.31 points, down to 1,218.49 points. The local company index maintained its value at 272.65. That shows a little bit of weakness that's still being registered in the domestic markets. We hope definitely this week will be a better week. Of course, the markets are open right now, and I'm telling you, it's very easy to be able to participate in these markets. All you need to do is register for your Securities Central Depository account, and that is done by opening a portal, by using a portal there called Easy Portal on www.use.org.ug. When you go there, they'll ask for your email and your details of your national identification number and so on, and all that is to capture your data so they can open the account. This process is absolutely free of charge, and your account won't be closed whatsoever, even if you don't deposit a coin in a year. That means you can wait until next year to invest, but your account is there, so you're ready anytime. So get yourself started, get strong, and let's get moving. The markets are a little bit down, I agree, but this is always the best time to get in. This is the best time to get in. I've already told you about Umeme exiting in 2025. You want to be part of that, because shareholders definitely are going to be one of the people that have to be compensated, and that's why you're seeing the value of the Umeme stock going upwards. No other reason. The company is closing business, and therefore people think something big is coming, and that's always what the stock market looks like. What do people think? That's what drives growth in the stock market. My name is Anthony, and you're watching Financial Markets. We're going to take a very short break. We'll return shortly. Don't touch your dial.
SMART24, driving business.
The taste of Uganda in a new international park.
Sebo oba nnyabo olirandira odi oba olina ekifo ekipangisibwa URA ekujjukiza okwewandiisa ofune ennamba ey'omusolo eyitibwa tax identification number abasinga gye mumanyi nga TIN. ennamba eyo ejja kuyamba okwanjula n'okusasulirako omusolo. Tusima balandiroodi abaamala edda okwewandiisa n'okusasula omusolo gwabwe, era tukubiriza abo bonna abatannaba kwewandiisa bakozese akaseera kano beewandiise, tukolere wamu okulaakulanya eggwanga lyaffe.
Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
SMART24, driving business. SMART24, driving business.
Warm welcome back, and thank you so much for watching SMART24 TV, where we drive your business. My name is Anthony Sebale, and I am your host. Now remember to catch me on Twitter. You can go to @SMART24 TV and follow. You can also go to @Anthony Sebale on Twitter and follow. You will definitely get all this content under you on Twitter, but also you might be interested in getting us feedback. It will be a good avenue to use for feedback. Thank you for those who are on YouTube. We do stream live on YouTube every single day, and so our YouTube channel is SMART24 TV Live. You can catch us live there and get to comment. Leave a comment in the comment section and get to tell us how you're finding the market currently. Thank you so much for staying tuned and watching SMART24 TV, where we drive your business. This show is proudly brought to you by Altex East Africa, your #1 private stock exchange. I've already mentioned this, but I will not get tired to tell you that you can invest with as low as 15,000 Ugandan shillings in the treasury bond market. Now, that hasn't been the case in the past few years or in the past few months. You needed at least 100,000 to be able to invest in treasury bonds. But with Altex East Africa, with their exchange traded fund, you can start with as little as 15,000 Ugandan shillings. So as you can get that return on your money as you're saving it on different platforms and get that income underway. Remember to also get into the market between 15 minutes past 8 and 15 minutes past 3 p.m. East African Standard Time. Let's get to the Nairobi Securities Exchange, and this is of course an exchange that is the biggest in East Africa, the busiest, and one of the most active stocks in Africa. Currently, when you look at Nairobi Stock Exchange, they are representing a market value of over 1.97 trillion. A report recently showed that Nairobi Securities Exchange lost over $6 billion US dollars, above $6 billion US dollars in the year 2022, due to mainly the foreign investors liquidating their capital investments in the market and going for more attractive interests on the treasury notes in the European countries as well as in the United States. That hampered growth on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. But today, the market is still growing, and Mr. Mudundo Godfrey, who is the Nairobi Securities Exchange Chief Executive Officer, came out recently to talk about the unity of the East African capital markets, and the Nairobi Securities Exchange is in a drive to see that they can actually unite the capital markets of East Africa. And being the oldest exchange in East Africa and the most experienced trading floor in the entire East Africa, definitely they have a big say when it comes to the capital markets in East Africa. So we're looking forward to that, because definitely we need it, given the current market conditions. We need it. People need to diversify their portfolios to be able to spread out their risks, but sometimes it's pretty hard because you have to get engaged in transaction fees. And for example, you're buying stocks from the Nairobi Stock Exchange here in Uganda, the foreign currency, you have to factor in the exchange rates and so on and so forth. And the stockbrokers are licensed, who are licensed in Kenya, are not the same as those licensed in Uganda. And all that comes to the detriment of the investor, who is at the end of the day being inconvenienced, who is actually facing high costs of investment. And this is very discouraging for investors. So we are looking forward to that unified market being driven by the Nairobi Securities Exchange. However, on Friday, ending the day, were 44 Nairobi Securities Exchange listed equities participating in trading, which took place at the end of Friday. By the end of the day, we had about 21 gainers and 14 losers on the market. The gainers were led by Total. Yes, Total Kenya came in first position with a total 9.84% gain, up to 24.0 Kenyan shillings rather per share on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Now, Total Kenya is engaged in the sale of petroleum products, of course, Total. And the company has 4 main business channels. They have the network channel, they have the general trade channel, as well as the aviation channel and the exports and bulk channel. The network channel includes the distribution of petroleum products through services located across the country. The general trading channel includes the sale of a range of petroleum products to all sizes of industrial consumers. The aviation channel, of course, comprises of sales of turbine kerosene as well as aviation gasoline for turbine or turbojet engines, and this is for both the local and international carriers. So it's a pretty big company here that we are talking about. The company has also test diagnostic lubricant laboratories in Nairobi, averages of about 50 tests a day for its clients in the region. In addition, the company runs a quality control laboratory in Mombasa, which monitors the products of the lubricating oil blending plant. Currently, Total Kenya has a total market value of over 4.2 billion Kenyan shillings, and this makes it the 27th most valuable on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Currently, it represents about 0.213%. So we are talking about the 27th in 65 companies listed on the exchange. They had about 9,500 shares that were traded on Friday. ending the day with about 227,800 Kenyan shillings in turnover, and beginning the day with 23.85, they gained a 2.15 Kenyan shillings on their price, up to 24.00 Kenyan shillings, which met the 9.84% gain currently being enjoyed by the company on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. The earnings per share were 4.35, and the price to earnings ratio about 5.52 as well. The shares outstanding currently were about 175 million shares, and a market capitalization of over 4.2 billion was also realized. The current shares indicate, the current share price information indicates that Total began the year with 23.85 Kenyan shillings, and since then it has gained a total of 0.63%, which is of course the 27th in terms of NSE year-to-date performance. Well, 27th in terms of value, 27th in terms of year-to-date performance. What a consistency from Total Kenya. Now, in terms of trading or market activity, they are the 43rd most traded on the Nairobi Securities Exchange in the past 3 months. We're talking about from October 4th to around right now, the 6th of January, that is on Friday. Total, within this period, they have recorded about 191,600 shares in 215 deals. These are valued currently at 4.54 million Kenyan shillings over the period. A pretty good amount for a company like Total Kenya. And yes, that's Total Kenya for you. Would I advise you to get ahead and buy stock in Total? Absolutely. The company has lost about 1.03 weekly, which is small, and 4 weeks they have gained about 4.35%, and in year to date they have a 0.63%. Well, 2023 is the year for petroleum products. Why not try out some of these companies and see what happens? I would definitely push for Total Kenya, especially for the long-term investors there. TransCentury, wow, TransCentury is doing great, by the way. Coming in the second position this time around as well at 8.65% gain on Friday. Now, who is TransCentury? TransCentury is a Kenyan-based company engaged in the power, transport infrastructure, and engineering industry. The company currently is focusing on those 3 divisions: power, industry, and engineering, rather transport and engineering. And the power infrastructure, of course, is mainly looking at the electrical cable and transmission equipment distribution in East and Central, as well as Southern Africa, with a broad customer base, including retail outlets, as well as large and small electrical contractors and projects, as well as utilities. The engineering division mainly looks at mechanical and civil engineering works, whereas when you look at the transportation business, they are into the logistics services in the region. In 2014, TransCentury Limited actually announced that its subsidiary Safari Rail Company Limited had sold its stake, equaling over 34% in the Rift Valley Railways and the national rail operator of Kenya, as well as and Uganda, to Africa Railways, a subsidiary called Citadel Capital. Currently on the Nairobi Stock Exchange, TransCentury represents about 0.022% of the Nairobi Stock Exchange, valuing their market capitalization at about 424 million Kenyan shillings on the market. On Friday, they gained 0.09 Kenyan shillings up to 1.13 Kenyan shillings. Very affordable stock there at TransCentury, which was an 8.65% gain. They had about 64 deals and 104,100 shares that were recorded. Pretty fair volume there. And the turnover, the gross turnover was about 117,979 0.0 Ugandan shillings. As per the earnings per share, they have about 10.61 Kenyan shillings earnings per share, and the price to earnings ratio at about 0.11. Currently, their market capitalization of 424 million shares, 424 million Kenyan shillings, is held within about 375 million shares that are floated on the exchange. Now, very interesting fact here. TransCentury is the biggest gainer, is the second biggest gainer in year to date on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Please take note of that because the company in the last 5 days of trading has traded close to, they have gained about, 21.5%, making them the second in terms of year to date, which is the 1 week performance. But also in the last 4 weeks alone, they have accrued about 31% value over the past 4 weeks, which is also still the second best on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. So why not go ahead and buy some stock here? Also, TransCentury East Africa is the 6th most traded on stock. Thank God for its very affordable stock at 1 point something Kenyan shillings. You can be able to own part of TransCentury East Africa, which is quite affordable. One Kenyan shilling is about 31 shillings here in Uganda. So it's pretty much affordable. In the last 3 months, they have about 21.7 million shares that have also been transacted on the company there at the Nairobi Stock Exchange. That is TransCentury East Africa Limited. Away from that, Nairobi Business Ventures also gained 7.87%, as well as TPS East Africa Serena at 6.92%. And on the losing side, unfortunately, Express Kenya has continued its losing spree, down by 10% on Friday to 4.5 Kenyan shillings per share. Let's look at Express Kenya because it seems something wrong is actually going on here. Express Kenya is a Kenyan-based company engaged in the provision of clearing and forwarding services for air, sea, and sea travel, and as well as warehousing and logistics services. It operates under 5 divisions. They have sea freight, air freight, as well as parking and removals, transport, as well as warehousing. When you look at the company's stock, currently they have about 215 million Kenyan shillings. That is their market capitalization, the worth of their shares on Nairobi Stock Exchange. This represents about 0.011% of the stock exchange. The company's performance in the recent past shows a slight mixture of reactions. In terms of year-to-date performance, they are ranked the 54th. Basically, the last 5 days of trading. Express Kenya began the year with about 4.71 Kenyan shillings, and currently at 4.50 Kenyan shillings, they have lost 4.460% of their trading price. However, the shareholders' fears can be allayed by the fact that they have gained about 50% increase in Express Kenya's share price since the 5th of December, which is the best on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Now, that's the mixture of reactions that you have in here. You have a stock that's currently losing in the last few days, but in the 1 month, they have accrued about 50%. I would definitely buy the stock. I would. 50%. Do you know what it means to invest 50,000 in a company, and in 4 weeks, that money has accumulated about 50 more thousand, rather 25,000. So you have 75,000 instead. That is value. That's what we are looking for. So yes, Express Kenya is going through some tough time here in 2023 so far, according to the trading here we have done so far this year. but at least we could close a knife given the 1 month performance. In the long run, definitely we can have value on this one. And that's Express Kenya for you there on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Now moving on ahead to the other, of course, market performances here on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. The biggest mover was Absa Bank Kenya. Yes, Absa Bank had about 6.61 million shares, and Safaricom came in the second place with about 2.02 million shares, and Kenya Power and Lighting Company came with a 1.36 million shares volume, and NCBA had about 442,200 shares. Regarding the performance of the Nairobi Securities Exchange market indices, the benchmark index, the all-share index, had about a 0.47 shed off. Unfortunately, their pricing down by 0.37% to about 126.85 Ugandan shillings per share. Forgive me for that one. The points, about 126.85 points on their closing mark there. On the other hand, the NSE 20 and the NSE 25 appreciated, with the NSE 20 going up by 0.34% and the NSE 25 up by 0.27%. And that's the trading, my friend, from the Nairobi Securities Exchange. We can, of course, get to discuss more on this one on our Twitter. What do you think about the current situation at Nairobi Securities Exchange? And would the integration of the East African capital markets better the Nairobi markets? You can discuss with us on Twitter, and we shall get to those comments later on tomorrow. In summary, Africa looked like a big day for them on Friday, with the biggest stock exchange, Johannesburg, adding over 1,400 points on their all-share index, which is the benchmark, the J203. And the Nigerian Stock Exchange also added about 353.82 points on their benchmark index. A pretty good indication of growth there in 2023. Will the markets be better 2023? I don't know, but I project if things stay as they are, we are not going any far. But if we get to integrate, this could be one way we could overcome as a continent, as a region, in terms of the woes currently facing our capital markets. Let's get to crossover to US before closing and have a look at what took place on the United States financial markets platform. Now, the stocks rallied after the December reports, job reports were released. Now, on Friday, the US stocks climbed Friday morning, and this was following the December employment data that was released and showed the wage growth deceleration last month, while closely watching the manufacturing report reflecting a contraction in the services industry. Investors perceived the release as a sign Federal Reserve officials may ease their rate hiking campaign. Now, the S&P 500, a top tracker of the top 500 companies, jumped by 1.7%, while the Dow Jones Industrial Average added about 550 points, or around the same percentage point, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite advanced 1.5%. All three major averages were on pace to round out the first week of 2023 with losses before Friday, but the indexes will end in positive territory if momentum holds. Now, the Labor Department's final data showed that the US economy added about 223,000 payrolls last month of December, while the unemployment rate fell to 3.5%. Economists had perceived readings of 200,000 and 3.7% respectively. Now, the jobs data is very important in the US, and how I wish we could have the same here in Uganda. Probably this could be a way of getting to look ahead on our stock markets, because when they release these reports, people are out to see if there has been more employment. That is clear indication that companies are making money, and so they are investable. You can invest in a company because you know you're seeing growth, you're seeing it's employing more people. It means there's demand, there's productivity, there's production. I wish we could have the same as well for the Uganda government, where we could release jobs data and see people who are getting jobs, how the unemployment rate is doing. Or maybe that data could be there, but maybe not as official as we are seeing it here at the American, in the American economy. Well, definitely, my friends, my time is up. Thank you so much for watching. Those of you who have been online, those of you who have been on GOTV and DSTV, very, very grateful. I'll catch you tomorrow, same time, same place. I wish you a very blessed day and week. Bye for now.